and today is Global Tiger Day. I'm Melvin Gumal, your moderator for today. And as it stands, we are live, and I think I don't have the numbers just yet, but I'll update you on how many people are watching this webinar right now. But firstly, let me introduce you to MYCAT. It is an alliance of 5 NGOs, and it's supported by the Department of Wildlife and National Parks. But today is about the panelists, and it's about all of you. Let me first introduce you to Balu. Balu, give a wave.
Hello, sir.
He's the head of conservation for Malaysian Nature Society. Next up is Muna Noor, a very concerned citizen of Malaysia and a certified catwalk leader. Then we actually have a former journalist, Elizabeth John, give a wave. And of course, finally, Malaysia's Green Queen and actress, Karin. And obviously, if she wants to give a wave, she gives a wave. There she is, she gives a wave. Now, as you can see, this session is about diversity, and we are about to go into the different roles people can have to save the Malaysian tiger. For those that are in this session with us, we're going to ask some questions, and we'd like to hear your responses in the comment section. And by the way, stay tuned till the end, because MYCAT has a very special announcement to make right at the end. Now, in day one, we had a brutal, honest conversation with tiger experts, and they shared with us what inspired them to continue to try to save the Malayan tiger. In day two, partner NGOs such as Wildlife Conservation Society Malaysia, Traffic, WWF, shared insights on threats to tigers. In this discussion today, we're going to go into what it means in terms of the relevance of tigers to Malaysians and what we can do about it. Or what do you want to do about it? Or I want to do about it. Now let's have a look at some slides to make it easier to frame parts of this discussion. If I could have Nat put the slides on shortly. Now, all of us have, whether we like it or not, oral history that links us to tigers since we were young. For example, Malaysians had things like Sang Harimau and Sang Kancil, Sang Harimau and Sang Tikus. If you Google it on YouTube, you'll see some of these YouTube shows on tigers and Sang Tikus and so forth. For others who read comics, you would have things like Calvin and Hobbes. But Disney took it into another dimension in Jungle Book. Now, you may think that those animals are not real. Let's have a look at the next slide. These are our Malaysian animals. We have tigers. Yes, we do. Elephants. And the black panther or leopard. Orangutans, we also have. These animals are real, and these animals are real in our forests. But it's more than just the childhood that we share with all these animals that our mom and dad read to us. When we grow up, some of us go into things like this. Next slide, please. Some of us go to universities, some join corporate organizations, some join companies and so forth, some join NGOs. But if you look, our tigers are within our emblems. Next slide, please. This is what would happen if our tigers are lost. University Malaya would not have tigers there. Next slide, please. A private university, Sunway, also would not have tigers there. And for those who think that it's beyond that, look at our national emblem. Today, there was a news report about India talking about the national emblem having tigers there as well. But this is what it would look like in Malaysia if we do not have tigers. And when I showed this once to presentations to PDRM, they were shocked that their tigers could be lost like this. So as you can see, tigers are part of our daily lives. We just don't realize that it is. If we are not careful, we will have a picture of the future with zero tigers, and then we will be faced with an emblem, and that has no soul. So let us try to internalize tigers into our daily lives. And now I give it to the floor. Firstly, let me start with the first question to the panelists. I have coming up, the first person that we will be talking to will be Balu. What does it mean to you personally if we were to lose the Malaysian tiger?
Hi everyone, happy World Tiger Day. Meet my buddy. His name is Tiger, all right? So I grew up with him, basically, all right? So if you
Can't
ask
really
me,
see him.
you can't see him, all right? There he is.
Where is it the teddy bear?
Yes,
A
right?
bear
So
called
if
Tiger.
I'm going to
Okay.
miss him, all right? If I'm going to miss the tiger, all right? So you can see that I will lose all of my childhood memory, basically. What's more important is for my parents, they brought me up with the values, that's instilled in the tiger. All right. So this is my hero, basically. They taught me how to be brave when I'm scared. They taught me how to be smart, when I'm not that street smart. Okay. And they also taught me how to persevere, right? In hardship and move forward. All right. So this is something. Although Mr. Teddy has been very humble, very cute, he's been with me for all this while, but in reality, you need to have something that's living, right? That you can actually associate with. You look at the tiger, you can see that it's ferocious, it's big, majestic, and these are the symbols that we grew up with. So if you ask me what it means to me, it means actually, how I struggle through life and how I become someone as I am today. So that's more or less, that I want to say, and also it'd be a pity, all right, moving forward, if I cannot instill the same values to my children and also my grandchildren. They need to have a hero in their life, and Mr. Tiger here is my hero. Thank you.
Oops, I had to unmute. So, Balu, that's very personal, and thank you for that. Next up, we actually have Muna, who will be talking about to to us about what it means to her to personally lose the Malaysian tiger.
Whew. Thank you so much, Dr. Gumal. Well, I was actually moderating for day 2 as a guest of MYCAT. And I had lots of messages from my friends around the world, near and far, basically in support. And one particular message was from a friend in California, Lai Quen. And she was saying how she really wanted to join me on a MYCAT catwalk in the jungle. And I said that I'd love to take her and her son, but her son is only 5. And I realized that 10 years from now, there's no guarantee that tigers are still going to be in the forest for me to take her son out on a catwalk. I'm sorry, guys. It's really difficult reality to accept, but it is a reality that if we don't do something now, tigers will be lost forever. And for me, personally, tigers represent all that is wild and wonderful about the forest, and particularly about Malaysia. We are only one of, I believe now, 11 countries that have wild tigers. And for us to slowly decimate through acts of cruelty and also through apathy, through bad policy, to decimate something so beautiful, simultaneously beautiful and fierce and wild and wonderful, really says a lot about the lack of our humanity and this very special gift that we've been given. And I'm just not sure that I'd want to live in a world where we would allow that to happen. So losing tigers would be terrible. And I implore everyone to get on board and help, change things.
Thank you, Muna. That's really emotional, and it appears that you do internalize the challenge, the needs, all our passion, all our wants to try to save the Malayan tiger. Let's have Elizabeth talk about the same in terms of what it would mean to her to personally, if she were to lose the Malayan tiger.
Hi, everyone. It's for me, losing the Malayan tiger is it shows a collective failure. Unfortunately, despite everyone's best efforts, if we lose the Malayan tiger, it is a national failure to try and keep at least the most iconic wild animal that we have in Malaysia. And losing the tiger is also, to me, a terrible warning for all the other species that are on the same path as the tiger. We have spent a lot of time, energy, and effort trying to save an iconic species. And if we can't even do that for the tiger, what hope is there for the other species that are not as charismatic, not as known, not as loved as the tiger? So that's what it means to me if Malaysia loses the tiger. Two very depressing and serious things. One is that it's a failure on our part, and that we don't have much hope for other species.
Wow. We range from really personal to even more personal to national failures. Now let's have Maya. What are your views on all this?
Good morning, everybody. I would like to get a little bit more straight to the point, and as obviously sad as it is, and as emotional as sometimes I do get sometimes as well. But and I would like to sort of mention or go back to Elizabeth's point that despite our best efforts, and here is where I mean that I'm going to go straight to the point because we don't have too much time today or in general for the tigers. So we haven't done our best efforts. We have not. There are a certain amount of people in our country that have put our hearts and soul into it. But in general, have we done our best? No, absolutely not. There are so many more. There are so many ways that we can do so much better. And we have possibly the next 2 years to do something concrete about it and rally everybody that is important. And the important people are our people, the masyarakat, who have a voice, and the politicians who can decide the laws and legislation, the police, military, who guarantee the enforcement in the jungles and anti-poachings. That's when I would kind of come to more of an agreement that, okay, we've done our best when we do finally lose them. And yeah, if we don't do anything for the next 2 years, that the word is when, not if. So I have actually, as many of my fans who might be watching right now know that I've been active in environmental activism or environmental awareness activism since 2006. And I was very much busy with the project River of Life for the last 1.5 years and trying to create awareness amongst Malaysians, the importance of our riverways and the impact it has on our own health and infrastructure. But now this year, actually at the beginning of this year, I vowed to do and be much more proactive for the tigers. Unfortunately, obviously, 2020 has not quite gone the way that I planned it to be. I thought I would be a little bit more ahead in terms of tiger awareness and conservation efforts. But okay, that's not going to put a dent into my enthusiasm or my fire to do something, the fire of a tiger. So, yes, I don't know. Is that enough for an introduction?
Thank you, Maya, for that. Your point that we don't have much time is something that has been seen and heard for the last 3 webinars that we've had, including this one. There's a general fear that this wonderful animal will be gone if we are not careful. Biologically, it is possible to save this animal. They are a cat, they breed. The only question is how much commitment we are going to give to make sure that this animal has a chance. There are other places around the world where tigers have made a comeback. It can be done here. Now, let's have a look at some comments from people from our 45,000 viewers. No, I'm kidding. We don't have that many. Let's have some comments from them. And I'm going to scroll to look at some of the comments. Some people say that we should be doing more outreach to try to get to the general public in terms of trying to get a greater critical mass on that. Do any of you have any views on this?
Yes. So this is where I think as a topic is what is it? Your role to save the Malayan tiger. And I do believe that my strongest role in saving the Malayan tiger is to do that outreach for the public. And I have, fortunately, thankfully, many a fan. And capability to reach out to people or to institutions and to politicians. I would like to use my voice that I've been given to try and remind people, because the problem is a lot of people really don't know. I've even spoken to news editors who are surprised when I told them there's less than 2,000 tigers. And then they look at me going, what? What do you mean? What? So if news editors don't know this fact, then what do you think about the average layman out there? Lagi lah tak tahu. And if they don't know, then how are they supposed to help or do anything or take action? So we need to really push this agenda out to people. Okay, passing it on now.
Any of you guys want to jump in?
Yeah, may I? Yeah, I work a lot with the local community groups, right? So in my job scope, I actually work in a program called Citizen Action Group. So areas where we don't have people to support certain cause related to conservation, so we would establish that group. So in this particular case, we have a group called Sahabat Raja Rimba that we have formed about 3 years ago, and we have worked with them. I think what is more important for the tigers is, we need champions. Yeah, our program is not about creating awareness, where people will look, see, hear, and talk about it. We don't want that kind of group. What we want is people who can put in action. When you say save the tiger, they put it into action and they lead that action. So this is what we want, right? From my experience, working with local community, usually they look at themselves as, what I can do, how can I contribute, and so forth, right? I'm inadequate, I don't know anything about it, I'm not empowered, right? And I'm not also encouraged to do this. So how do you get involved? I think this is where I think you have to, when you work with people, you have to look at it in a very long-term perspective, because saving tigers is not a very short-term solution. Yeah, you need to teach them, you need to train them, you need to empower them, and you also need to deploy them. So this is very important, and I think this is what MYCAT catwalk is all about. You know, giving them the exposure and also to take them into the jungle too, so that they could familiarize this situation. So our community efforts is very localized, all right? So you can only work with communities where there is a conflict with wildlife. So in that sense, you know, the people who are living by the forest or living around the forest, they need to be empowered and they need to be shown the way how they can be involved in all these efforts.
Can I jump in to ask Muna, because Balu gave you an opening?
Well, in terms of outreach, I do actually feel that while a lot of us are trying very hard, it's true. There's not enough of people out there who are playing their part. I know, you know, people have other demands in their life, but we're not going to be able to turn the tide if we all don't get involved. And there's so many ways that we can get involved. I'm a MYCAT catwalk leader, but I really started out just reading a lot of articles and being moved by those and then sharing those articles. And I know a lot of people don't think that that's a lot, but if that's all that you're able to do, I think sharing stuff and creating that kind of awareness and creating social change is really important. And if there's enough of the individual, you can actually move governments to do something more. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeking, for governments to sit up and pay attention and to put money where the problem is and to provide the resources that we need. Because, I mean, it's like a giant ship heading for a reef and about to crash in a reef. Basically, we need all hands on deck, and we need good leadership at the helm, steering us away from that. We have been, like, in some small measures, everyone's been doing that, but it's not enough, and we really need a lot more. And I think that's why a lot of the conservationists have been calling for the Prime Minister to helm like a tiger task force.
So you actually have a suggestion and it revolves around greater commitment by government and so on. Yeah, that is part of the discussions that have been going on for the last few two seminars. I actually have an interesting one from the public. It revolves around the thing called I. What can I do as a normal Malaysian to support this? You guys have views? And when she's not
Okay.
the person is
I would like
talking
to
about the government. Oh, continue. Sorry, Maya.
Yeah, okay. So for one, okay, we talked about the MYCAT, which the MYCAT and the catwalk. So the catwalk, for instance, is a simple sort of weekend getaway where you go into the jungle and you go and walk 5-6 hours, and at the same time appreciating the nature, but also being sort of volunteer rangers. And in fact, I've spoken to Dr. Kai, and she is probably one of our top experts in tiger conservation and has done a lot of work and has been in the country for the last 20 years. She's from Japan, actually, but she's so wonderfully passionate about our tigers. She's put in hours and hours of work to support this. So, activities like that help a lot. If also, I would just, my friend Savina has suggested, imagine if 10% of our citizens donated just 1 ringgit and that would come to more than 3 million ringgit. And to pass the 3 million ringgit on to more enforcement. Enforcement and boots on the ground is really what's very, very important in saving our tigers in the next 2 years. We are losing them a lot to poaching. And so with the MCO that's been happening and the sort of roadblocks, I do believe it's been good for wildlife, where especially foreign poachers have been very, very, intimidated by this and are not coming out to hunt down our precious, valuable wildlife, including the tigers. So the police has been great in sending in more boots on the ground in the last year or two, and that commitment has been surprising and just wonderful to see. But yeah, imagine if, okay, Savina, right? So if 10% of our population just gave 1 ringgit, and my foundation that I've just set up, we'll just go straight up, and we're gonna go work with MNS and the communication, the community outreach, where we train people who are on the borderline between wildlife and community, and empower them and give them an income and give them a job, and it would just be great. So those are the things that we can do. Just 2 suggestions. I'm sure everybody else has more.
You guys want to try suggestions for the word I?
Can I just jump in there? I think I noticed that one of the comments that appeared on Facebook, I think it's, let me see. Yeah, basically saying that not enough people care. One way of creating awareness, it's Global Tiger Day, 29th of July, and Malaysians love public holidays, right? So why not make Global Tiger Day a national public holiday in Malaysia, where the entire country comes together and stops for just 1 day to celebrate this amazing animal, and all the energy that is put into that to create awareness. I am sure that would drip down into like various actions and concerns that, and could lead to so much more. But I would love for that to happen. I know that they have parades in Russia, they do parades in India, not necessarily on this particular day, but they have those kind of things devoted to the tiger, because the tiger is a symbol of their national identity, and perhaps that's something that we could consider. A public holiday, everyone. Anyone want that?
Okay.
Essentially, Maya.
Yeah, Muna.
Muna.
Public holidays are a great idea, and Malaysians will never say no to another public holiday for sure. But talking about how there is a general idea that the tiger doesn't really matter to every person on the ground. It's not something at the top of everyone's mind. I think that is something we have to recognize as a challenge that we have to take on quite seriously. If the animal or the issue doesn't relate to people, that is going to be a hurdle, no matter what else we do. That will always be a problem, because people are not invested in it and don't buy into it. So I think as a former media person, what I can see is that, with a lot of issues, you have people reacting, you have people appealing to government, you have people making noise on Twitter and stuff like that. But when you show a photo of a dead wild tiger, not everyone reacts that way. You don't see the same level of empathy as you do, say, for abused kitten or an abused dog. Not that one is more important than the other. It's just that if you notice, it's a very, very different reaction. There are many of us who do take to social media and do take to media and talk about the issues and press government for change. But the vast majority of Malaysians, the reaction is just not there. And I can also tell you this based on when we send out media releases and with photos of chopped up tigers and pictures from seizures that Perhilitan and police have done, it's just not the same level of reaction. And I think if there is one thing everyone can do easily and immediately, is to start making this an issue that tops the national agenda. Politicians and decision makers are just never going to pay attention unless the issue is really big, it's really out there, and it's bothering them. So, I'm not suggesting we go out and cause anarchy or anything like that, but just if it doesn't even make as big headlines as it should. And here's one thing where we all have so much power as a general member of the public, as a voter, as a citizen. If your MP, if your decision maker, local decision maker doesn't know that this matters to you, right now what they think matters to you the most, and rightfully so, is bread and butter issues. MCO, loss of income, things like this. But if you don't let them know that other issues like conservation, like a loss of a tiger, is a big deal to you, it's not going to matter to them either. And the decisions are going to continue to be made the way they are now. So, here's one thing all of us can do. We're all on social media. We all have a voice. And, more than just the media or NGOs, decision makers now listen to voters. Voter sentiment is so important. So, you know what? This is the time to make use of all the noise-making media that you have.
So we actually have several ways in which I, the person, can make a commitment from Maya to 10% of the Malaysian population donating some funds, to Muna joining in, making National Day, and Elizabeth to thinking and making sure that it becomes relevant to society. Now, I assume that, can I read from the comments? One of them comes from a Wildcat Action Group that say that have a bunch of I comments. I pledge to never buy illegal wildlife products. I pledge to never patronize entertainment and businesses that exploit wildlife. I personally pledge to have responsible choices in our daily lives that allow us to live in harmony with wildlife. There are others that convey that the public should push the government and relevant authorities in having a harsher way to deal with tiger poachers and wildlife traders, not 12 years in jail and 210 million, but along those lines. So anyhow, I have 4 more minutes on this topic. The last person to have an I comment would be Balu. Before we close this question, can I have you, Balu?
Yeah, like I mentioned just now, I think everybody should embody the thought that tiger is a national animal. It's a national symbol for the country, and it's reflected not only in our national emblem but also in our national flag, right? Those stripes mean something to us, right? Just like harimau, bayangkan harimau hilang belang, right? So how do you imagine Malaysia as a nation to lose its jalur gemilang that we say, right? So everybody must look at it that way. The other thing that they has to understand is, as a biological species, our Malaysian tiger is very unique to the country. It's a subspecies, the Malayan subspecies, right? So you don't find it in any other countries. Okay, and we are one of the 13 countries in the world that have tigers in our jungle, right? So if there's something happening to the king of the jungle, right? So there is something wrong, as Maya put it forward, and also as Muna also put it forward earlier. There's something wrong, we are not being responsible Hey, tiger is our fellow citizen. They are territorial animal. They don't go from Malaysia to Thailand and to Indochina to India. They don't do that. Okay, and also there are states in Malaysia which has tiger, so they must be responsible. You cannot push it all towards the federal government. That's not fair. Yeah. So they are territorial animal. If they are Kelantanis, they are Kelantanis. They are in Kelantan, they are Kelantanis. Right. So this is something that they need to understand. All right, to get the support from the state government and so forth. Right. So when we lose the tiger, we are going to lose our heritage. Okay, we are going to lose the symbolic animal that actually lives in among us. You know, that gives us courage to move forward. Okay, and we are also going to lose, all right, a citizen of Malaysia. So this is something that we need to understand when we say in harmony with nature and so forth. Thank you, Navin.
Okay, now what we had was a discussion in terms of what I can do about it. Earlier on, we started the webinar by asking the panelists in terms of what it means to them to lose the Malayan tiger. Now, we have some comments, or rather, we're going to look at some of the comments in terms from the general public, what it means to them to lose the Malayan tiger. So, at the moment, there are some that are pretty angry about it because they believe that it's a national identity. It's something that Malaysia should hold on to, obviously, and as much as possible. And clearly, the comments resonate with those in what you guys have been talking about. And in some angrier than others, some wanting the government to take more action, some wanting to have, in a way, they feel so angry that they want to join MYCAT and catwalks and so forth. And I applaud them for doing that. And so we should continue to try to push. And if there are other suggestions of what I can do about it, please put it on Facebook. Clearly, MYCAT will be taking up all these notes and thinking about and prioritizing them to see what we can do about it, because we really cannot lose this animal. Okay. Now it's 11:41, and I'd like to go into the next stage of this webinar. And right up, it's a question to the panelists. So, Balu, in your opinion, how do you get the environment to be a national government priority? And what can you do about it?
And from the context of the tiger, right? It is an apex species, right? And it actually entomizes, the health of our environment. They are the king of the forest. So imagine you're losing a king of a forest. So, like I said, there are a lot of things that's going wrong down there, right? We know the forest is not only important for the tiger, for the tiger prey, but it is also important to sustain our economy and also our daily life, right? So I think the government, they have a very nice plan. They have the National Tiger Country Action Plan, right? So it's been developed. I know MYCAT was involved in it, right? And we all were involved in it. So I think the government needs to be very proactive and needs to solicit, get everybody involved, not to leave any part of our community outside of that, including Sabah and Sarawak. I know Sabah and Sarawak doesn't have tiger, right? But this is a national animal, right? So everybody must come on board. Okay? So how do you bring them together? Okay, is important. I think the government may not listen to us, the NGOs, right? But the government will definitely listen to the rakyat. Okay, so I think with a focus on tiger conservation and also our forest conservation, the government will listen. I think we just have to push for it.
And it follows the same lines as what Elizabeth was talking about. Now that we have all this power in our hands, essentially to interactive social media to try to get the government to be engaged. Is that what you're suggesting as well, Balu?
Yes, definitely. The news has to go to everyone, right? And they has to understand importance and priority.
What about you guys, fellow panelists? What do you think of Balu's suggestion? Anyone?
Yeah, okay, I'll go. Sorry. No, I fully agree, and we really need to galvanize the people and let them know what is happening, give them the facts and figures, and try to strike into their hearts. Hi, thanks. And find ways to get the awareness snowballing as soon as possible, as fast as possible. We can't afford another 3 to 5 years, really. Otherwise, I think we can declare them extinct already, just because of I think I'm not a complete expert. That's the thing. I do say that of course, I'm not the expert. I do believe that, if I understand correctly, that, if a population with a confirmed population of 100 or less, there's just no way of rebuilding the population if politicians and states and the country and federal government does not commit to, for instance, the Central Forest Spine is essential to the survival of the tigers. And we need the government, and we need these commitments in order to save the tiger. We can't just, okay, passing it on. Anybody want to chime in? Okay.
I think I think the real trick is going to be, how do we get people other than ourselves, other than the ones who already love tigers and who are already working for tigers, to feel the same way we do, and to go out and act. Just now I talked about using social media and stuff. A tweet is great, a like on Facebook is great, but we do also have to go beyond that. And the big question for all of us, I think, all of us who work in conservation and all of us who care about the issue is, how do we get someone besides ourselves interested in this issue and active on this issue? I mean, all of us have had some success with some methods, but it'd be good to hear if anybody else out there has some other bright new ideas that we haven't thought about, because we're kind of using the same methods for a long time. Some have worked, some haven't. So I think that's going to be the real game changer, if we can find a way to make this an issue for everyone else the way it is for us.
Agree.
Yep.
Well, I'm still excited about making Global Tiger Day a public holiday. Like I said, I don't think anyone in Malaysia can ignore the fact that there are tigers if you have one day allocated just to celebrate them. And schools can do special events, corporates can do special events. There could be, like I said, there could be marches. That is one way of ensuring that every single person in the country knows that we have our tigers out there. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of methods. I think everyone has their role to play. I'm also a hiker, and I think hikers, because they spend so much time in the forest, a lot of the time we're hiking and we take a lot out of it, but I've actually come to this point where I'm asking, what am I putting in? And so apart from like simple things like plugging, you could be looking out for acts of poaching. And if you see anything, also report it to the wildlife crime hotline, sharing those messages with other people, other hikers. I mean, the hiking community is huge, but I think they could actually be mobilized. So, I mean, that's one other option.
I'm going to say something really cheeky, which doesn't make any sense. Well, I think it doesn't make any sense. Uh,
Okay.
a while ago, mountain gorillas had a huge problem, and Dian Fossey, much like Kai, was walking the hills trying to save these animals. Then, I'm not suggesting that Kai gets killed or anything, but Dian Fossey got killed, And then Sigourney Weaver took on the role, and Gorillas in the Mist shook conservation along, huge amount. And there was a discussion a while ago, seeing that she has 10 million Twitter followers, and she's right on the left part of my screen right now. The question was, would she take and do a movie about tigers? And having those kinds of strong women pushing conservation, galvanizing a large part of her audience, on top of not 10% giving RM1, we're talking about a lot more. We're talking about taking the bull by the horns. She drags all the other actresses and actors and all that with her, politicians, into this major movement to try to save our national identity. If you don't have sang harimau and sang tikus, you want to have sang cockroach? Really? I don't think it's going to work. So what do you think of that idea by one of those that in the past few days, one of them said, hey, why not get her to make a movie? It's out of the box. It's strange. It costs a lot of money. But along the lines of what Muna is talking about, trying to make sure that everybody sees it as a national priority, perhaps we should think about things outside the box, What do you think, Maya?
Yeah, an interesting thought, and probably, possibly a faster way of actually collecting funding from people. But also, actually, I do have a script already in my head that I kind of semi-wrote when I was hiking or traveling through Imbak Canyon in Sabah for five days. I actually I was with rangers. I got the rangers to be my actors while I was shooting with my phone to sort of get snippets for a possible presentation. So Savina, if you're listening, or if you're watching, please remind me again this afternoon that we should explore this idea I think it would be great. And it makes a great genre, and it has great relevancy to our country. So yeah, good idea, Melvin. I will explore this further and see what directors and producers I can find who would be interested in such a story. And maybe I can get Leonardo DiCaprio to be my hero. That would be awesome. Then we'll really get international attention to our beautiful tiger. So, okay.
I have comments from people like Wong Siew Tee, Time Magazine, Sun Bear, who believes in conservation of sun bears, who wants greater awareness. Shah Reza, the head of Balu PSPC, who is also wanting the idea that we should increase awareness and essentially try to make it much more relevant to the general public. So if you think that it's a useful idea, perhaps other people may also do that kind of support. Leonardo DiCaprio playing Balu, I think
there's Charles.
I can see that Balu.
Yeah, you want me to play with my teddy bear?
But also, besides making movies about the conservation part of tiger, the situation facing the tiger, I'd also like to see a little bit more of that attention for the people who are poaching and trading tigers. One of the most effective ways we found to, at the very least, make government sit up and pay attention is making the poachers, giving the poachers and the traders that level of attention. If you remember, not so long ago, Netflix had a Tiger King. I think the program about a man who a really, really crazy man who collected tigers and who did a lot of illegal trade and even tried to have a conservationist murder. That whole story. It's a part of the whole tiger problem that we don't see. Anyone who gets dragged to court or termed a poacher is a nameless, faceless person, and so it to us 1 year's jail, a little bit of fine, 2 years jail, it doesn't make a difference. When we make this person a character, when we make this person famous and important, it suddenly, what happens to them in court, the fact that they have to pay for a crime, it becomes a much bigger national issue. You show that there is a real face behind the kind of crimes where people are profiting from tiger poaching. And I think we don't do that enough either. So, to show who are these people who are really, really, driving this terrible business that is killing tigers, I think that level of attention is also necessary.
In other words, you're talking about two-pronged approach, not just awareness, but the mere fact that these poachers should all the problems, the issues that they will face in terms of doing harm to this national animal. That's what you're suggesting, right, Elizabeth?
Yeah, to make to give the criminal a face, and to make it to make it relatable that there is a real person behind this. It's just not some random person. There is a syndicate. That it's real, and someone has to pay for the crime. And it is being driven by people on the ground, and you can do something about it.
Good. I see a lot of comments that they like the idea that we should give greater awareness, and using things such as movies as a means to try to create greater awareness for tigers. And one of them made the joke that Leonardo should play Shah from Perak State Park Corporation.
Wow. Well, Shah is more handsome actually now.
Okay. Now, we move on from there, and we've got about half an hour left or less. So there was a question, a strong one, to Elizabeth. It was to her role as a former journalist. How do you suggest we use social media or traditional print media to galvanize public support? Is posting quantity better or quality? Can you give us some details? Because you have thousands, and in Maya's case, millions, who are on Twitter and who could mobilize action towards trying to save tigers. Your views, Elizabeth?
I think we have to take the kitchen sink approach, throw everything in. There's not one answer to this. Traditional print media is an industry that is facing huge challenges. It is slowly shutting down. They have very few readers. So, there probably, if there is going to be investment in getting media to spread this message, it has to be the new media. But having said that, you cannot avoid all media or traditional media, because although they have few readers, those readers are actually very, very important people. I think vast majority of government civil servants still look at traditional media, especially print media. All government offices have newspapers delivered to the offices every day, so you can't completely lock them out. So I would say use every method that is open to you. The difference is with if you're using the new media, social media, internet-based papers, internet-based television, YouTube, any of these. you have to seriously spend a lot of time and money, or you should, thinking about how you want to portray things, because it's a very crowded space. Okay, there are millions of people vying for attention online, so you have to do a lot more planning and a lot more clever thinking. The other thing with this is that people have become headline readers. People's attention span is, close to zero these days. Everyone reads a headline and goes on from there. Everybody's major source of information is a rumor that your mother's neighbor's friend's uncle passed to you on WhatsApp. This is how everyone gets their news nowadays, unfortunately. So, don't set aside those media. If WhatsApp is the way to go and WhatsApp is the way to reach more people, then think about a strategy for that. Don't look down on any opportunity that you have of spreading messages. But you do have to think about it carefully, and you do have to be short, sweet, and to the point. Or you have to be really, really creative to catch people's attention. I think Muna will tell you that, trying to get, that there isn't really a science to something going viral on social media. You think you have the answer now, and tomorrow it's a completely different thing. But maybe she can talk to you more about this, because she's still contributing articles to the media right now, and it's a very difficult space to navigate nowadays. But it should still be used, and you should use all the methods open to you, is what I would say.
Okay. If you don't mind me continuing that line of thought, there are instances where bad news can be used as a teachable moment. For example, when the tiger got run over, or when you had the case of the canine distemper. I mean, those are all teachable moments. And I think it's really important for media, and particularly the new media, who are able to respond really fast, to actually act on that and use that to send a particular message. But I think that's one of the key issues also. Perhaps there are not enough members of the media who are well versed in conservation or in science, and there is a growing group of people who are science writers, but they're not enough. And perhaps anyone who's considering a role in journalism might think about, if you have a love of nature or a love of wildlife and animals, you might consider something like that. In terms of those people who might have those viral videos, I think sharing is great, but you have to share with caution, because you also have to keep in mind that it's not just people who love animals or are concerned about the tiger's fate that are watching that. Poachers are watching that too. So whenever you post a picture of, say, a tiger print, or of a tiger walking across your path, you really need to make sure that there's no geotag on it, so that people can identify what that place is. And you want to keep it as generic as possible. So I think anyone who's out there who have those things, please stop to think about that before you do share. Although, you mean well, I would be very careful about that. One other thing that actually, Instagram is incredibly powerful, and it always upsets me to see people use their Instagram to post pictures of them with wildlife that should not be pets, that are their pets. And it constantly surprises me that a lot of people are not aware that those animals should not be pets and are actually illegal to be traded. And so I think a lot of work needs to be done there. I mean, some of these things, sorry, Maya, I know it's not you, but some of these people are celebrities, and they have great power to do good. And unfortunately, the message that they're sharing is not a good one. This may be just because they're unaware, but I think those are people that would be great to reach out to, because just having someone turn from being someone who has wildlife to someone who gives up wildlife and takes a different path, I mean, that in itself, I think, could show the general public the way. These people have huge fan base. I think it could have great impact.
Melvin, can I just quickly add to that? I think it's also very important that the scientists and the conservationists in the community become media people. You have to be your own media person. we don't have enough informed voices on social media, especially on new media. We get a couple of quotes into the newspapers every once in a while. But all of you have to become your own celebrities for the cause. It's really important because, as Muna said, not everyone means well, but they don't always have the right idea, and it's really important that they hear the informed voices in the spaces where they are. You have to go to them. So we need to see a lot more scientists, conservationists in media, and we Traffic, the organization that I work for, spends a lot of time giving training to media. I think a whole pile of us conservationists and scientists should also be receiving training from people who are already in media about how to do this, and how to do this in a way that works for the people that we are speaking to, not how we want to do it, but how it works for them.
Several years ago, when a bunch of us who won some awards, we were taken to BBC to be taught how to communicate better. The scientists, the conservationists, and so forth. Like what Elizabeth mentioned, there is a need for engagement by scientists, by celebrities, by influencers, and so forth, to try to galvanize social media interaction into saving wildlife. As Elizabeth also said, Traffic is organizing such kinds of trainings for the print people. Would you guys see a webinar training of sorts for your influencers be a useful thing, so that if Maya puts out a tweet and people know what are the kinds of things that they should respond on or support by the thousands so that she can actually multiply her effect, So would this be a useful thing for various NGOs, celebrities to think about? Not an SOP, but a gentle set of guidelines of how to do this properly. Right now we have a terrible use of this term, buckshot approach, shooting everything that comes into line. And I think we need to be a little bit more focused. What do you think, you guys?
You mean me? I'm the only guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Balu.
No, not you. Everyone, sorry.
Yeah, I think everyone is doing their best, in contributing towards tiger conservation, right? So I think they need to actually communicate what they are doing, right? Our very basic activity with the community usually would be tree planting along the tiger corridor. All right, so we do it and we are happy doing it. All right, and the community have their own nurseries, so communicating what they are doing for the benefit of the tiger and also for other wildlife and also the nation is also very important, to show that there are people who do care. Okay, same thing also being the eyes and ears of the authorities. It's also an important process in that way, of course the technology helps, right? But then things are happening very fast and our law is not catching up. You can't catch someone who have done the work, but doesn't have evidence in his hand. So having this media savvy and also the tech knowledge and also the equipment is also very important. So you can catch them in action, and of course you catch a picture, right? But you can catch them in action. You can use that as a proof. So I think this is where media training, not only for people on the ground doing patrolling and catwalk is important, but also for the people on the ground who can always be our eyes and ears on the ground is also very important, right?
I have a comment which is a drastic one. Some out there have said, hey, look, I think we should be much more aggressive on this. Saying things like, I shouldn't be saying this, shoot on sight for the poacher,
Yeah.
not just putting them in jail or have longer term sentences, along these lines. And what do you think of that approach of scaling up penalties, jail sentences? Do you think that it should be something which, in general, we should think about? Your views, you guys?
No.
Who are also guys in the collective term?
No, we shouldn't be thinking about it. We should be doing it now. And it's something that I was thinking about already 15 years ago. Why penalty is so pathetic. The amount, it just does not equate the amount that they stand to win by a successful transaction, wildlife transaction, compared to that measly little penalty that they will get. It's just, it doesn't make any sense at all. And I know there have been more vocal voices and more sort of some government efforts to say, look, we need to increase penalties, but we know it's not something we need to think about anymore. It's just, we really have to get going. We really have to put our foot down and shoot to kill. I'm sorry, but our biodiversity, Malaysia's biodiversity, is worth billions. You're maybe not even, I don't even know if you can put a price tag on it. And we need to protect what we have, and we need to make sure the police, the military, the rangers, the boots on the ground are there and understand that it's perfectly fine to protect what we have. This is a huge heritage we have. And we really just have to continuously and always try and get people to understand how wonderfully lucky and amazing Malaysia's biodiversity is. We are in the top 11 countries of richest biodiversity. And like Balu said before, the tiger represents, it's our apex animal. And with the demise of the tiger population as well, it will affect the entire ecosystem and everything else that we have. So yes, I am in full support of being much more harsh here. Like, enough is enough, dude. Enough is enough. That's me.
The rest of the panelists, what are your views?
I'm not sure if I am down with the death penalty, to be honest. Sorry, Rosli Hassan, who's a friend of mine. I think, I'm not really down with the death penalty, but I do agree drastic measures need to be taken. But I think it's a very complex ecosystem, and I feel that there are really good laws out there. But then, you have to show a chain of evidence in court. You have to prove to the court that without reasonable doubt that a person has done something. Then the court has to understand the levity of what has been done, and before you can get the suitable punishment, or a punishment that suits the crime. So there's a lot of steps that happen for it to be made serious that Malaysia is cracking down. But I think some of the operations have been tremendously successful, and I think they're a really great start. The ops that was conducted by the police ops Khazanah, Ops Bersatu Khazanah, is it? That's been incredibly successful. I think the stuff that the indigenous communities are doing in the various field sites, for example, in Balam Menggor, that's showing great results. So by taking care of their own areas and their own communities, even if you're not shooting someone on site, but I think that you're very well aware if someone is coming into your area and doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, and then there's that deterrent factor there on the ground. So I think things like that are incredibly helpful.
Can I add to what Muna said? Okay, so there are a couple of things we want to think about when we talk about higher penalties. I'm really, really glad, and I think those of us who have been in conservation for some time are really, really glad that, we went from a 15,000 ringgit maximum fine to, now something like anywhere between 100,000 and 500,000 ringgit fine. And mandatory jail for tiger-related offences, right? That was great. But those who weren't there for the process didn't realize that something really unexpected happened when we managed to push penalties up a lot higher. Previously, when the fines were low, most poachers who were caught would plead guilty. And so, the time spent in court is about a day. They plead guilty, they are fined, or they're jailed and they're sent away. When the fines went up very, very high, almost all of them who got caught for poaching tiger or tiger parts claimed trial. And that's when we started to see the inadequacies in the prosecution process, the fact that we didn't have enough lawyers, didn't have enough trained lawyers. There was a lot of work that had to be done to get the AG's chambers involved, support for the wildlife department who were suddenly handling 1,000 cases when they had, very few court appearances before. Cases were falling apart, investigations were, there were so many difficulties and challenges, and, no fault to the poor officers who were involved because they never had to deal with that situation before, and they were not trained for that situation. So when we are talking about increasing, fines and penalties, we do have to have all these other support systems ready for that day, and that government is considering a lot higher penalties now. The Act is going to go to Parliament soon. They have higher penalties. The Inspector General of Police has been talking about whipping as a penalty. People have been talking about shoot to kill policies. But all these things, we do have to stop and make sure that we are prepared for that, whether, when the country makes a decision. So, because you don't want to have all this hope created, and then, when it comes to actually implementing it, you have a huge amount of problems. And then you're just going to be seen as being inefficient, and then frustration is going to set in, and people are going to be, unhappy and lose hope in this process. So it's not that we shouldn't think about it, it's not that we shouldn't do it, but we should be properly prepared for it and think about all the consequences before we suggest it. But yes, there is a need to look back at the penalties, to do something about it. And also, as Balu said, we have to, there has to be a fair bit of thinking about this process.
So, Elizabeth, you're saying that in essence, better fines, more fines, but we should think about it and make sure that the system is able to cope with the stresses that we're going to put into it. That's what you're saying?
And make sure the officers who are actually going to do the law enforcement have the support they need, have the training they need, have the skills and the people we need. When, for instance, Anson Wong, the famous smuggler from Penang, right? He wasn't involved in tiger trade, but when he came to court, he was defended by one of the country's most expensive and best defense lawyers. And, this is what law enforcers are having to deal with on a daily basis. So, we know that poachers and traders are people with money. This is a cost to business. They have calculated for it and they are prepared for it. The question is, are we also prepared? We can do a whole lot of things, but we must be prepared. We mustn't let that gap happen the way it did the last time. And, put these people in a situation where they cannot implement the law.
You have views, Balu?
Yeah, actually, about shoot to kill, right? If you want to have that kind of thing, it's fine. But if you look at our enforcement agencies, be it the wildlife department or even the forestry department, they are going into the jungle with only a parang. So how do they shoot and kill? The only people who have that empowerment is actually the police and also the army. You see, so when these guys, pity them, they go into the jungle, right? They have to bring the police and the army along. Otherwise, you can't even, do that enforcement, shoot to kill. But anyway, the existing law always prohibit Malaysians from entering the forest without valid entry permit. All right. So anybody found in the jungle loitering around, moving around, yeah, if it's not their home, yeah, so they can be caught and they can be fined and they can be prosecuted.
Okay, you guys have given a set of views, and it is starting to border into things like strategies. In fact, I see a comment from a viewer who indicated, is it still viable to just focus on protecting wild tiger populations, or has it come to a point where a drastic strategy change is needed? Do you guys have views on this? Obviously, we have already started making inroads into some of this, but do you drastic strategic change, you guys? People?
Well, I would love more people to come along on a catwalk with me. The general public can get involved and find out more of what happens on the ground in actual tiger territories. Sungai Yu Tiger Corridor is basically like a critical area where tigers that connects like two large tiger habitats, which is like Taman Negara and the main range. So, that's an open invitation to everyone. Once the catwalks get started again, right now they're not happening because of the MCO. But I also feel that whatever we've been doing now, it's shown itself to be not enough. Some things have worked in certain pockets, and actually Dr. Melvin Gumal knows more about that than anybody. But whatever we're doing now is not working, and I think because of that, a drastic change needs to happen. I think everyone needs to get involved. I think the government needs to step up. I think there needs to be very, very strong leadership at the top. And as I said before, I feel like a broken record, but it needs to be made a national priority. It cannot just be a conservation issue anymore. It's a societal issue. When the tiger goes, as Elizabeth explained, so much more will go with it. I mean, we rely on ecosystem services. We're already seeing floods because, forests are being chopped down for musang king plantations and other monocultures. So yeah, change has to happen, and change has to happen now. It can't happen next year, or when a new election comes along. It has to happen now. Also, can I just add, just before I forget, one of the things that I contributed up to, apart from MYCAT catwalks, is I did write a piece recently on the last days of the Malayan tiger, and that's out on unreservedmedia.com right now. It's a 3-parter. They just launched it on Monday. The second part has come out today, and that's the third part will come out on Friday, and that's part of Global Tiger Day. So unreservedmedia.com has kindly supported the call for change.
And in response to what Muna just said, I'm going to make a personal pledge. I'm going to forego Musang King durians until the whole issue of land use and protection for wildlife is sorted out. And anyone who knows me knows this is a huge sacrifice on my part. And if there's something simple like that, let's all do it.
Fair enough.
Actually, to be honest, musang king is overrated. You can only eat like one piece and then you feel so jelak already because it's just too much. I much prefer the normal Malaysian kampung durian. Okay, that's just on the side. But
So,
yeah, we'd
Go on, go on.
No, I would love to. I would love to get in touch with our Prime Minister, since, if I may read this, National Tiger Action Plan was adopted in November 2009 by Malaysia's National Biodiversity Council, chaired by then DPM Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. So I would love to invite him again, and for him to continue this mission that he launched. The aim was to implement concrete efforts to protect the Malayan tigers and double their number to 1,000 by 2020, which is now, but yet we have failed miserably and we are at less than 200. Okay, I don't know, I just in case there are people watching out there who maybe not aware of this, but yes, the aim was 11 years ago to come to 1,000 tigers, and we are on the verge of losing them. Just a gentle reminder once again what this webinar is about.
We have 6 minutes to go, and one of the suggestions came about revolves around communications, that they feel that public communication is lacking in terms of conservation and should be a central national communication center on wildlife and poaching and so forth, so that in essence, scientists, conservationists, media people, influencers can contribute for that strategy to try, so that we can actually galvanize Malaysians to be much more engaged in conservation. Do you feel that a strategic change along those lines would be a useful one? Comments came from Shah. Anyone?
Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Balu.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, like I said, tigers are territorial, so they are very localized, right? So we here can talk about it, can say about it, yeah. But the issue is happening on the ground, right? So the communication has to be that that effective. Say for example, like COVID, the communication was very, very effective. Before I realized it, within the 3 days, I was stuck in KL. I couldn't go back home. Cannot see my wife. Right? So effective. So you just wrote down very quickly. I think we should have something like that also for any tiger or wildlife related communication as well.
Anyone else? 4 more minutes.
I totally agree with Balu. I do think that we have the capacity to change. I mean, the fact that we have had to deal with COVID-19 and up until recently, I could say that we've dealt with it as a country successfully, means that we can put the same, if we can put the same effort into tiger conservation, then I do think we will see positive results. So yeah, that's a fantastic idea.
I would just like to say that over the course of, like, let's say the last 6 weeks, I have agreed to participate in many a webinar and many a webinar. And the problem with conservation and sustainability movement in Malaysia, I think, is the language and the cultural approach as well. We here, like Balu said, we're here in the city, and we English-speaking experts talk in English all the time. But we do not address this issue properly to the Malaysian society in their language, in the language that they're comfortable in. And so I think we need to change that approach to media and communication, that we do translate this conversation that we're having here to the Malay language, to Mandarin or Cantonese, or something that really where we can penetrate properly, instead of us being all elitist and talking in English only, and then expecting makcik, pakcik, and orang asli, all that. Do you think they're watching? Do you think they have any idea what a webinar even is? And not to put them down, but if I've been to Belum Forest with the orang asli, the community that has the power to help in terms of enforcement and eyes on the ground, boots on the ground, but we're not engaging them enough.
Okay, you guys, I have 2 minutes and I have to do a little summary, and then Kai and MYCAT is going to have a special announcement after this. Clearly, we can save the Malayan tigers. We can, because we have done it already in certain places in Malaysia. And it's doable. It's not rocket science, but it requires a lot of commitment. And we should and must, because we are a cosmopolitan society and we want to have other races to live with us harmoniously, we should do the same to the species that roam our forest before us. So thank you so very much for this. And I now hand it over to comms in MYCAT Tech to take over in terms of the special announcement. And before I do that, I was told that all of you guys, ladies, people, humans, prop up, do a little smile, and because they want to take a screenshot. So,
Hey.
are you done, Tech? I hope they're done. Okay, they're done. Okay, that's my role for the day, and I leave it over to Dr. Kai Kawanishi, and she'll take over from here. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for the Global Tiger Day 2020 webinar series on the Malayan tiger. Thank you so much, all the moderators, panelists, and viewers, especially Maya. Most of all of them are already MYCAT tiger conservation community, but today you spoke for the Malayan tiger and even mentioned about the National Tiger Conservation Action Plan, which we didn't really have a time to talk about today. Malaysia collectively failed to implement the action plan fully, and that's why this is where we are. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our volunteers, supporters, donors for giving and doing something for tigers, not just through MYCAT, but through the partner NGOs, as you've seen, Malaysian Nature Society, Traffic Southeast Asia, Wildlife Conservation Society Malaysia Program, and WWF Malaysia. Thank you. Or you might have supported Perhiritan Selamatkan Harimau Malaya. Because of you, wild tigers still survive in Malaysia. We haven't lost them yet. So for that, we celebrate today. Here comes the announcement part. MYCAT is chuffed to announce that our tiger saving catwalk program will resume in September every weekend for domestic travelers. Chuffing is the sound that tigers make when they greet each other, like when they snuggle up to each other like that, because they can't purr. So this chuff from Malaysia goes out to all our treasured supporters, volunteers, and future catwalkers. It's time to get back into tiger's jungle, protecting Malaysia's national icon and nature's best expression of her wildness. So let's roll up our sleeves and put our favorite pair of Adidas Kampong on.
You muted yourself.
Oops.
Ah,
Thanks,
okay.
Maya. Okay, I'm gonna go from the due to the pandemic part. Due to the pandemic, for us all to remain vigilant in the fight against further spread of COVID-19, we have decided to reduce the group size to a maximum of 6 participants per catwalk. which means the place is limited. Existing Malaysian catwalkers and those in Malaysia who have already signed up for this year, but were canceled due to the pandemic, you will receive an email from us with more details after this. Okay. For more information about Catwalk, visit our website, or you can Google Catwalk for Tigers. MYCAT is the only one in the world that facilitates anyone healthy above 18 years of age to directly get involved in protecting tigers from poachers and snares. Their forests from mining and deforestation. If walking in jungle or Adidas Kampong isn't your style, fret not. To those, we offer virtual catwalk. You pay the fee, and local orang asli will get paid to protect the tigers forest on your behalf. And sometimes it's good because they get to go to a more remote places where volunteers cannot get to. For registration or further inquiries, please email us at cat@malayantiger.net, cat@malayantiger.net. For up-to-date announcements, follow us here on Facebook or other platforms that we have. Lastly, let's imagine a not so distant future when you're old, and believe me, all of you will be old. Your grandchild asks you a question. Grandma or Ato, apa yang Ato buat bila harimau Malaya telah pupus? In most of Malaysia's forest, Malayan tiger is already ecologically extinct. There are few tigers left, but they are not playing any significant ecological function in the given ecosystem. But whether to do something you can do to help protect tigers that are still living today is a moral question. And now you have a choice. On that note, I am done talking, and I'm really done talking. Thank you and goodbye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Maya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Kai.
Okay.
Thank you.
You did really well. Thank you. Now you showed it to